Hi everyone, welcome back to Problem Posing. I'm your host, Christina. I am thankful to be here. I am really thankful for the opportunity that I have to share additional information. This has been a very devastating time as we mourn the lives lost in Palestine and in Israel due to violence, due to genocide, due to tremendous violence. And it's a difficult time for so many. And I'm thinking of people who are impacted and of their loved ones. I'm trying to keep the podcast going. As a second-year teacher, things have definitely been picking up for me. I'm now a literacy coordinator as well, and so I'm still thinking about what is most helpful for the podcast and what kind of form it can take to be the most helpful to people. But right now I'm thinking of making it shorter. I'm thinking of making it a reaction to things that are going on within the city, from press conferences. I'm looking forward to the work that is ahead. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the new NYC Reads initiative, and I want to share this because it's an initiative that was announced a few months ago, and it's very important that everyone is aware of it because it's supposed to be an opportunity for the New York City Department of Education to recenter what reading instruction looks like in the city, to make sure that students are learning how to read in a way that aligns with the science and that is evidence. I'm going to be reacting to the education-related announcement that Mayor Adams and Chancellor Banks and U of T President Michael Mulgrew put together. Again, this was a few months ago. I want to share some information on context, want to share some information with regards to resources, and I encourage you to share this with anyone you know who knows a child, who knows a student, who wants them to read and wants to make sure that they are reading and getting access to literacy instruction that is as closely aligned to the evidence as possible.
Chancellor, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Those who are part of this, he sat down and said, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And, you know, Chancellor, I thought it was that they were reciting the old Negro song when they said, at last. And my dream has finally come along. You know, you guys and ladies, you've been waiting for this moment for a long time. And is it going to be perfect? No. But damn it, we're going to try. We're going to try. That's what we're going to do. We're going to try.
This is a really important point because we see that there is a disproportionality with regards to special education referral in New York City public schools. We see that Black and brown students are more likely to be referred to special education, and often when students are in an environment that is the most restrictive because of their special education referral, it can be difficult for them to be in a more least restrictive environment or in a lesser restrictive environment, thinking about ICT and other settings like that could put students in a more inclusive space. This issue of literacy is very important because it has connections to our systems of incarceration and policing in our country, and so there are very real implications to this work.
So 45% of the students not reading on grade level. Denver, look at that, 61%. This is not just a New York City problem, everybody. Philadelphia, 66%. Omaha, 73%. I've been meeting with superintendents all across the country. Everybody's grappling with this. Chicago. I mean, 80% of the kids in Chicago not reading on grade level. Right here in our own state of New York, in Rochester. 81% of the students in Rochester not on grade level. And so this is a national problem. It's a national crisis. It's a civil rights issue.
What's difficult about this is often, and I'm no expert, but often we see when elected officials go into office, they have ideas. They have ideas related to education. They have ideas related to education policy. And sometimes they are good ideas. But when a new mayor comes into office, in addition to a new chancellor, currently Mayor Adams and Chancellor Banks, they only have a limited amount of time to really push forth the vision that they have for the schools before the next election comes around. The mayor might not win the next election, and if somebody else is there, then they can take everything the work that happened before and basically take it apart and start again with something new. And so that leaves teachers very tired and teachers very cynical, I think, and understandably so, of the system and of the way that things go usually in the city.
Tremendous implications for all that we do across the nation. 1.2 million students dropping out each year. Students drop out when they give up on themselves. They give up on themselves when they have not learned to be successful in school. And they're not successful in school when we label them a failure from the very earliest ages. But they don't just disappear. We spend as a nation $2.2 trillion in lost national income when we don't produce young people that can graduate from high school and they begin to start a productive part of their lives and taking their rightful place in this 21st century economy with a college degree or without a college degree. But at the very least, we ought to be able to graduate them successfully from our high schools, and we've not been doing that. It's what the mayor talks about on an ongoing basis. 70% of incarcerated adults read below a fourth grade level. I just simply think about this one. A simple 1% increase in literacy skills would produce $240 billion potential boost to our economy. When young people that we see hanging out in the streets, we don't graduate them, they are drained economically. But when we help them to realize all their true potential, they become a boost to the economy. So, you pay me now or pay me later, but we're going to pay.
What this is very connected to is something that is all over the place, sweeping the nation really, called the science of reading. And the science of reading is not a single program, it's not a single curriculum, but it refers to a body of research that is being used and analyzed to share with educators and researchers and everybody in the reading space how to best teach students how to read, how to teach children how to read, how to teach reading in general. And so we are seeing across the country a move away from what was called balanced literacy to something called structured literacy that is aligned with the science of reading. The science of reading is not just phonics. I will share information about Scarborough's reading rope. There are so many different strands in the rope that need to be working together to make someone a skilled reader. And so from vocabulary to decoding skills to, vocabulary, there's so many different elements that need to be taught. And often we've seen that there's been curricula out there, and there's been, materials out there that weren't teaching directly and explicitly to these skills at an early age. And so there's a push now to make the teaching more direct, more explicit in these areas in ways that align with the science of reading. And so in addition to Scarborough's reading rope, another thing that's very important to think about is the simple view of reading. And you might hear about that a lot too in the reading world these days. We have, in the simple view of reading, word recognition times language comprehension equaling reading comprehension. So again, word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. And so if you don't have one of those elements of the equation, either the word recognition or the language comprehension, 0 times anything is 0. I heard a literacy leader say recently, 0 times anything is 0. And so you need both parts in order to get to the reading comprehension. And we're seeing that far too often teaching does not include work that addresses all components of what
we call the science of reading. And so here are the components that we are talking about. Phonemic awareness, which is really about being able to hear the sounds and words. Phonics, being able to match those sounds to letters. Vocabulary, essentially knowing what the words mean. Fluency, you develop over time, being able to read accurately and quickly. Your brain can process information very quickly. And ultimately, comprehension, making meaning of sentences and extended text. This is the framework of what a solid reading foundation actually looks like. It's not just phonics.
Chancellor Banks will share more information towards the end of this, as we'll discuss, but there are 3 different programs that the DOE has required for folks to implement into their schools, but there's going to be a series of phases that these programs will be rolled out. So it's important to know the 3. The first is into reading, the second is wit and wisdom, and the third is EL education. But again, as the Chancellor mentioned, these things are going to be going into the schools, and teachers will be getting access to materials in phases. And so these are supposed to be replacing the materials that schools have used in the past. And as they replace the materials that have been used in the past, they're also supposed to be more aligned with the science of reading and evidence-based curriculum. But again, this is starting in phases, and it's going to start with younger students.
We're not leaving this to every principal and every district to just do whatever they want to do. I'm a principal who believes very much as a principal in autonomy and allowing principals to make the best choices to the things that happen closest to their schools. But not on this. This is so foundational. Hey, listen, I'm telling you. There are a lot of ways to demonstrate a level of autonomy. The one thing we cannot play around with any longer is ensuring that that foundation is in place. Because I can't turn to a middle school or high school principal and hold them accountable for results. And we sent them young people who still can't read on grade level. It's not fair.
As I've mentioned, in addition to what you're seeing or what you will see or should see for the New York City Reads initiative within the DOE, into reading, wit and wisdom, and EL education, which I have to say at the high school level, we're using HMH into literature, which I'm liking personally, but I'm not as familiar with into reading, wit and wisdom, and EL education, but those are supposed to be used in the ELA classes. If you know or are working with an older student, options might include for intervention, rewards, phonics for reading, Starry, Wilson. These are names of evidence-based curriculums that are more structured, and some are even scripted that take all of the systematic phonics instruction and sequences it appropriately according to the evidence, the research. It also does work, particularly rewards around multi-syllabic word decoding, like breaking down multi-syllabic words into different parts, which is very important for older students who might not have gotten that. That is other curricula that you can ask about and look out for as part of this shift.
Our primary goal is to ensure that every child will be on grade level no later than the 3rd grade. So how are we gonna do it? We're gonna roll out a 2-year rollout on this. The first part involves, first of all, early childhood education, which I want to make it very clear now. Oftentimes, we don't talk a lot about the importance of early childhood education in reading. A lot of times we talk about it as though it starts at kindergarten. It starts from birth. But the work that we do in the early childhood space will be critical to this. We're going to ensure not only that we have our kids in the right seats, but that we have access to high quality curriculum designed to help the earliest and our youngest children, our babies, begin that process of learning how to read so that they are even ready by the time they show up for kindergarten.
Though this initiative is brand new citywide, the Department of Education last year had a dyslexia pilot happening where there was work happening to identify students who might be in high schools, middle and high schools, who have dyslexia. And so it's very important to ask questions about the literacy program being used at your school, at your child's school, at a school that you're interested in knowing more about when it comes to literacy. There are different strategies that could be helpful at home for a student who might be struggling with reading and writing as well, as they're definitely connected. There are programs like the Writing Revolution where students are asked to write because, but, so sentences and complete those sentences to see how they write on the sentence level, and there's some evidence based around that. There's also a lot of evidence around morphology instruction, asking students to write down prefixes, suffixes, affixes in general, and be focused on understanding the meanings of prefixes and suffixes and working with them to break down words and read longer words. And it's also very important, I would say, to work with students and get an understanding, or if you're a student, to know how well and how far along you are with your literary devices and other foundational skills for analyzing reading, because we see that there's a shift that happens from learning.
Please check in with all of your congregants and talk about reading. Lift it up. We want reading now to be something that we're all talking about. So it's not just, hey, how you doing? Ask people what you're reading. Let's have that as our conversation.
We see that there's a shift that happens from learning to read to reading to learn, but often when students are still trying to learn to read, they might not be accessing the reading to learn part, and that's what we're often seeing students who struggle with reading facing when they get to the high school level. One more thing I'll mention on this topic is to ask if your school has a centrally funded special education intervention teacher. If you're in high school, if your student's in high school, if someone you know who's a DOA student is in high school, that is somebody who is being hired, who's been hired specifically to do work around reading intervention to help struggling readers, both students with disabilities and students who do not have disabilities, students who have IEPs and students who do not. And so that's what I am, that's my role at my school, and that also could be a resource for people who are interested in learning more ways to support students who might struggle with reading or to learn more about these initiatives in general. Thank you so much for watching, listening. I'm going to leave some links in the description, some links in the show notes, and looking forward to next month's episode. Take care. Please share this information with anyone who you think might find it helpful, and thank you.